Welcome everyone to the ESX webinar series, and today's webinar on Making It Count, a new program at ESX this year. Today's webinar is specifically for exhibitors at ESX with information designed to cover your role at the ESX show. Before we get started, we'll go through some quick housekeeping. There's a question in your control panel over to the right. Later in the webinar, we'll have a Q&A session for you. So if you have any questions, go ahead and type those in during the presentation. The Q&A, we'll have them ready for you. This webinar is being recorded, so you will be able to find an on-demand copy on the ESX Experience part of our website. There is a deep link for you. You just type it straight in, and you'll get there. Today's speakers are John Galante, President of AE Ventures, which manages the ESX show, Nancy Franco, Executive Vice President of AEV and Operations Manager for ESX, and myself, Virginia Williams, Director of Program Development at AEV and the ESX Conference Manager. I think the material that we have for you today you will find very useful. It's really a different way of looking at sales. Like I said, the Making It Count series today is for exhibitors. We had one last week for attendees, which is very complementary to this material. The program overall is comprehensive and meant to address both sides of the relationship between buyer and seller, and especially in the context of a trade show. How the MIC tools help facilitate this relationship is really the key to making it count, or MIC, work for you. We'll start with just what is MIC, and for that we have John Galante.
Thanks, Virginia, and hi everyone. Good afternoon or good morning, maybe out on the West Coast if we have any West Coasters. So great setup by Virginia. Let me take it back a step farther and talk about the origin of this idea. The picture down on the lower right there is Joe Nuccio. Some of you may recognize him. He's the CEO of ASG Security, and he's one of several executives that we have advising on the show programming and the deliverables. Every August we have a planning meeting, and at this the 2014 planning meeting in August of 2013, Joe is participating along with others in brainstorming on seminar topics and what have you, and at one point just basically raised his hand and said, there's a lot of great information and ideas at ESX, but the most important thing is whether people really do something with it. And light bulb really went off over everybody's head at the meeting, and for me it spurred thoughts of the airline experience, which I'm on planes and in airports probably too much these days, but you know how they think at the airlines that their job is kind of done when they wave goodbye to you and say thank you at the door of the plane? I think they've certainly forgotten that part of your travel experience, your experience with the airline, is that middle photo, right? Which is the spinning baggage carousel with nothing on it and no human being in sight for hundreds of yards. In a way, we as event organizers, and not just AE Ventures and ESX, but almost every event organizer out there, kind of feels like their job is done when people say goodbye at the door of the convention center. And to Joe's point, it really is not done. It is about whether there are actual results, whether there's an actual implementation of the ideas that are collected at the event. And so that's what we're aiming to do with this program. It's really largely about return on investment from the attendees' perspective, but we've also engineered ways for our exhibitors and sponsors to contribute to that and benefit from this as well. So just to walk through some of the components of the overall program. One is the pre-show side of things, and the kit, the Making It Count kit, which is available for download and that has been mailed to thousands of our past registrants and prospective registrants for the show, is a planning tool that takes the attendee through a needs analysis that's specific to what they might benefit from in attending an event, a way to go from that needs analysis to understanding who from the team of that company should be attending and what they should be looking for, both from a business practices improvement standpoint and from a vendor or supplier relationship improvement. And then all kinds of reminders to come down the line on doing a good job of capturing your experience at the event, touching base as a team to make sure there's alignment and idea sharing, and then when you get back to the office, really having the sort of timely follow through with staff there and the appropriate attitudes about change and implementation, so that that experience at the trade show is more than just a good time and a kind of a glossy look at the marketplace, but it's really about collecting actionable information and putting it to work for your company. So that's kind of the scope of the overall Making It Count program. So let's talk a little bit more about how exhibitors plug into that, and let's get a little conceptual for a second and talk about sales, or how sales is changing. So on the upper left, I hope we have some folks in the audience that recognize that photo. That's, I don't know what the character's name, but that's Alec Baldwin and Glengarry Glen Ross. Remember, put the coffee down, coffee's for closers. So this is the old school traditional selling with the ABCs of always be closing. That's the Alec Baldwin version. New selling, the new ABCs are, I'd like to attribute those to Daniel Pink. And I don't know whether anyone in the audience here has had a chance to read this, this business book from Dan Pink. It's maybe a year and a half old. And I highly recommend it. It's about 250 pages, but it's a quick read and it's full of exercises. And for Dan, the ABCs of sales are attunement, buoyancy, and clarity. So attunement recognizes the need to really take the perspective of the individual or the company that you're trying to sell to, really understanding their perspective at a deep level, that without that kind of identification, you're not going to be in a position to sell. Buoyancy is about, any of us in sales know there's a sea of rejection that goes with sales. So how do you keep positive? How do you not get worn down by that sea of negativity and no's out there? That's the buoyancy piece of things. And he talks a lot about how the positive thinkers in sales, they are able to explain, and maybe some people would call this excuses, but they're able to explain the no's that they get as situational and not as endemic to what they're selling or who they are, and that's what gives them the ability to bounce back and take on the next sales opportunity. And then finally, clarity is really about communication, but it's also about clarifying needs. Pink talks about how problem solving has always been identified as part of the skill set for salespeople. But really in this era, it's now become problem identification, that you have prospective buyers who don't even know what they need. And you have to get that kind of a closeness and information sharing to really even help them understand the needs and the problems that you might solve. You know, it's trust-based selling. So this is, I think, really hard to do, but I think really essential, is that you build trust by being not a salesperson, right? By being somebody who is really there to serve somebody, and the sale is kind of incidental to that service. So what he says here is, you know, you can't fake trust. The trick is you actually have to care, And it's simply stated, but very hard to live. But I really think that, at least for us, and I'm sure some of you feel out there feel that way for you too, but for us, we have really got to have this more caring identification with our customer in order for them to share the information we need to identify their needs. And then this is a quote from Dan Pink's book. The best sellers adopt an attitude of service. They believe in the value of the product and how it will impact the life of the buyer. And because buyers also care about benefiting others, good sellers incorporate altruistic messages in their selling. And that photo is from Miracle on 34th Street. I think this is the original salesperson as servant example, at least in film. Remember Kris Kringle at Macy's seeing the kids, and one of the boys was asking for a specific kind of truck, and he refers him to Gimbals, which is the arch competitor of Macy's. And so, you know, that's an example of the salesperson as a servant. So really, that school of selling is what we're trying to tap and bring to life in what we're calling our Trusted Advisors Directory, which is one of the key components of making it count, one of the tools that we're putting into the hands of the attendees. And I want to turn it over to Virginia to give us more detail on that.
Thank you, John. As John said, the Trusted Advisors Directory, which we affectionately call the TAD now because it's easier to say, is a key element in the Making It Count program. You might think of it as a reference manual for attendees. They pick it up at registration on site, and it contains contact information from suppliers, from people like you that have indicated that they want to single themselves out a little differently, and in particular index the individuals from their human resources, their capital, human capital, to be indexed by their areas of expertise. The idea is to position the supplier not so much as a salesman, as John alluded to, but as an advisor, as a way to help them solve problems, and some would take it further to be a partner in business with their customers. The purpose of this Trusted Advisors Directory is to give the attendees a way to find you. So first on site, where they might want to set up an impromptu meeting with you, but also afterwards. After they come back, we encourage them to use this 360 degrees, really, before, after, and during the show. There's an online version that makes it easy for them to do that both at the show and after the show. The directory also contains a section which is for attendees, and doesn't really involve suppliers directly, but it's still important for you guys to know about. In the back, there are worksheets, and they're geared specifically for attendees to give them advice for how to set up meetings and how to do good follow-through and make the most out of those meetings. There's a template worksheet. It encourages them to schedule meetings ahead of time, prepare questions for you guys when they have those meetings, take notes during those meetings, set specific follow-up, another very key element of importance in a meeting process, and not just follow-up with the supplier, but also internally. Most of these guys have other people they need to consult with internally before they make buying decisions, and you need to know that, that they're taking it seriously and that they have their follow-through lined up. In addition to the listings in the directory itself, there are also additional designations on site for advisors so that the attendees will be able to find you. There are several meeting areas on site as well for impromptu meetings or for scheduled meetings, and opportunities to connect between buyer and seller at events. There are reminders on site that you'll notice with the same sort of look and feel for Making It Count to call out Making It Count moments or opportunities where you should take the next step, and to remind people to do that, both attendees and suppliers. There's a simple opt-in process where you select your categories, and there's a direct link on our website for enrollment. We have, again, another link where you just put a slash and type it in. It'll take you straight there. And the last point I'd like to make about the directory is that it sort of reinforces an earlier point. This really is intended to be complementary between supplier and attendee or purchaser. And it's one of several key elements for suppliers in this overall Making It Count program that includes tools for you guys. And for some of these other ones, that, especially the ones that deal with the sales approach, we'll turn it back to John.
This is a little bit of a corollary to Making It Count, and I won't belabor this point. Many years, or a few years ago, I had an opportunity to sit on the advisory board for a registration company in the exhibition industry. You know, the folks that help set up the advanced registration pages and such, and also administer the lead retrieval, right? And I remember talking about how our industry, the exhibition industry, has kind of done a disservice by making such a strong focus on this lead retrieval device, right? Because think about it from the attendee's side of the equation. The attendee has made a big investment in coming to an event, just like the exhibitor. There's probably $1,000 plus of travel and maybe registration expense associated for every individual out there. They've got time away from the office invested. And typically there's some level of planning and thought that goes into that. We're trying to encourage and incentivize more planning, but even so, the attendee is giving some thought to who they want to visit, who's on their short list. Then they're walking the event and they're taking time at really probably 10, 15, maybe 20 tops exhibitors booths, and they'll have that 15-minute or 10, 12-minute engagement at the booth. And then for the end point to be what we see down here on this lower left photo, which is, all right, I've had this human exchange. I've done all this prep work. I was interested in this product, and the end point ends up being, can I scan your badge and send you some more information? I mean, I think we've taken somebody who's at third base and brought them back to the batter's box in many ways. And number two, we've taken the life of that live face-to-face belly-belly exchange and turned it into this kind of processing commoditized experience, which is like you are like an item on a grocery belt, or you're like an item on a conveyor belt that's being put into a box to be shipped somewhere. So that's a story to kind of get at the curious divorce of salespeople from the live event realm. I think to some of this is about us as organizers talking, and please, marketers who are on the phone or listening to this, but we spend so much time talking to the marketing department. It ends up being about things like gross impressions, which equate to badge scans, or branding and new product promotion, and those are all valid objectives that can be served at an event. But face-to-face, the in-person experience is really the realm of sales, right? That's Jerry Maguire in the middle, and on the right photo there, he's the lord of the living room. He wanted to get face-to-face with people because he could sell. So one of the questions that one of the problems I think we're trying to address this year is how do we reactivate salespeople at events? So one of the things that I think happens is salespeople get very passive, and they're waiting to be told where to go and what to wait for at an exhibition. And we really want to encourage more proactive in-person meeting setting. I think we also talk a lot about new customers with the marketing department, and new customers are important, but for salespeople, those existing customer relationships are important, and you're face-to-face at an event with existing customers. Take advantage of that with a planned meeting that's going to, reinforce the relationship and maybe open up new opportunities to upsell, or as Dan Pink likes to say, upserve that customer. How about the prospects that you have in pipe that you've been talking to or working with that you're going to have an opportunity to get face-to-face with and accelerate or get to close. Let's try to do that work as well. And the in-person meetings, both with existing customers and folks that you already know, should be an important part of how the salesperson approaches an event. Again, be proactive, reach out and schedule. Here's a really important point, and this kind of gets back to this lead retrieval question. What's the best way to qualify whether somebody's really interested in that product? The best way really isn't to check a bunch of classification boxes on a form. It's to see whether they will take a next meeting to advance that conversation. So I really want to encourage salespeople who are having engagements to not just take a card and I'll be in touch with you, but really try to close a next call, a next appointment, a next meeting with the rep, whatever the next step is that should be appropriate. See where you are, do your qualification by trying to close that next meeting. I think that's important. There's no better time to push for that than when you're face-to-face at an event. And then think about whether more of a meetings-based metric is an appropriate way to look at whether your results are strong or whether your strategy was strong at an event. So it's not about these raw badge scans. Database can be acquired so many different ways these days. Make it more about how many meetings with existing in-pipe and new prospective customers the salespeople are able to generate coming out of event versus that mass market badge scan sort of things. And I think, as Virginia noted in the directory, I mean, we think that this making it count trusted advisory directory, getting a listing there for our salespeople is going to be a key to positioning them as a trusted advisor, somebody who's there to serve instead of just a sales jock or a peddler. So we are going to actually provide more specific tools on this. We're working on a sales team toolkit, and you can see what some of the pieces and parts of that are going to be about, addressing things with existing customers. We'll provide some sample correspondence, maybe an agenda for the meeting that you're able to conduct on site. Top line stuff that you can customize, but just some thought starters for you. Also addressing the in-pipe prospects and some thoughts on how to deal with prospect engagements at the booth. Hey, I think this second bullet point really important here. How do you ESX is so much of a networking event versus kind of a cattle call trade show. How do you really work this event beyond the booth? Get out to the general sessions and the social functions. And by the way, going back to that new A of the ABC in sales, attunement, what better way to do perspective taking of your prospective customer than by sitting in seminars with them and seeing how they're responding to the information and advice that's being presented there. So get out of don't think of ESX as just that day and a half on the show floor. Use the overall event and the general sessions to create opportunities as well. And then we'll put out propose a dance card / scorecard for individual sales practitioners, some tips on planning and managing your time at ESX. Certainly the Making It Count advisory directory application, and some thoughts on how you can make it count with your follow-through after the event as well. So that'll be in April. I can't tell you what day in April, but it'll be before the end of April that toolkit will be available as a digital download for you at ESXweb.com. So to sum up, we've had this program announced for about a month and a half now, and I think on the face of it, making it count, it's hard for you to understand what it is. So we've been trying to think of what are the slogans that we should be attaching to this so people understand what we're talking about. So it is about planning, obviously, on both sides of the ball, on the attendee side of things and on the exhibitor side of things, it's really about teamwork. Certainly we're trying to incent that at the attendee level, get teams to attend and get them to have strategies and division of labor. But I think there's also a teamwork element on the exhibitor side of things, which is let's get marketing and sales working together on this and really reach others' objectives at the event. It's about centrally everybody getting the most for their time and money, which are both precious commodities these days, and finally about leveraging ESX to really improve your company. It's got to be something more than just a show, just some time for us to parade out and show off or blather. Let's actually bring information and ideas back as attendees and put them to work. And exhibitors, let's see this pay off for you in improved relationships and ultimately in stronger sales of your products. So that's what Making It Count is about. And with that, I think we'll move to Q&A.
Great, thank you, John. The first question that we received is, what is the fee to exhibitors to participate in the program and to be listed in the Trusted Advisors directory, John?
That's a great question, because whenever you can answer a question like that with it's free, it's a great question to answer. It is free. This is value add for our exhibitors, and we just hope the fact that there is no price tag attached to it won't deter people from participating, because sometimes you all need to be charged to do stuff. So it's free. Take advantage of it. It's value add. It's not free because it's not valuable. It's free because we want to provide this service to you.
Great. Our next question, Virginia, I think you can handle this one. Does the Trusted Advisors directory give customer endorsements to salespeople?
No, Nancy, I wouldn't say that it does, but in a different way of looking at the Trusted Advisors directory, you might say that the whole directory is an endorsement. Simply to be listed in there sets you apart from other people, distinguishes your area of expertise, and gives people a way to find you as opposed to just your overall product line, but your particular area of expertise.
Okay. And the last question that we have, John, are there any tools for how a salesperson can gauge the trust they have with a client?
Well, in terms of measuring the level of engagement as it pertains to your on-site connections, I would go back to this idea of the tool being, will they take the next meeting? That is a great gauge. I don't know. Maybe there's an iPad attachment where you can look at whether somebody's retinas are responding or not. That may give you some sort of highfalutin measure on it. But let's do the practical thing that also is a practical step in the selling process, and ask for that next meeting, and that'll give you a gauge of what level of trust you've created, as well as what the interest level is in your what you have to offer.
That wraps up the questions. All right, so next for exhibitors, your next step in participating in our Making It Count program would be to sign up for the Making It Count Trusted Advisors directory. As it was previously mentioned during the webinar, you can go online to esxweb.com/MICTAD to sign up to be notified when the directory is taking applications. So definitely encourage you to participate, to get your name, your staff's name, your team's names included in the directory as ways for the attendees to really make it count. And also just wanted to make sure that you're signed up as an exhibitor, because that's an important part of this program. You must be an exhibitor or a sponsor of the event in order to be listed in the advisors directory. And get yourself registered at esxweb.com/exhibitorreg. Of course, the dates for the show are June 23 through 26 in Nashville. We hope to see you all there.
Yeah, and Nancy, just one clarification on there. So it's going to need to, for an individual from an exhibiting company to be listed in that directory, they'll need to be registered as part of the staff attending the event, right? Because we're trying to create a lot of these connection points on site. So I think this is an invitation to the exhibitors to start thinking about, really who should that staff be out there? And you may want to bring in addition to the salespeople who we're rooting for and we're hoping to support, and we want you to have great individual selling events, but there may be product management and technical folk that need to come out to answer some of the specific questions that would come up. So think hard about who should be on that list, and and this is a way to showcase some of those capabilities and that knowledge base that you'll be bringing on your team to the event. So I think that wraps it up. Thanks everyone for your time. Virginia, Nancy, thanks for your contributions. And please plan to join us in Nashville. If you have any questions about what we presented today, reach out to Virginia as your point person, or any one of us. Our contact information is on the web, but we really look forward to seeing you to have a spectacular event in Nashville this June. Take care and have a great day.